Chic on Twitter. He's very entertaining.
Oh, he does Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
Very, very fun.
May have to find that out. All right, it's 8:40 right now. Welcome back to CW Iowa Live. Lou and Jackie here on a Monday morning. Michael Jankins in studio with us as we talk all things revolving around bankruptcy. And this morning we have an interesting topic because I think a lot of people have heard what this topic of discussion we have is this morning, but maybe don't understand it totally.
Well, I think that's true. The reason I decided to talk about this today is because people call me up in fear. Their debt collectors were calling them and said, we're going to be garnishing your wages. And they call me and go, what's going to happen?
Right.
And I don't really think people know what a wage garnishment is. It sounds kind of bad.
Sounds very bad.
They just go, I don't know what it is, but I don't think I want it happening to me.
Doesn't sound good. So let's start off right off the top. What is a wage garnishment?
Well, it's an involuntary paying of your debt by the sheriff department, upon request of a creditor, will send a notice to an employer which tells them you got to start taking money out of this person's paycheck. So that's what a wage garnishment is. It's an involuntary taking of money out of your paycheck.
Before you even see it?
Before you ever see it.
Okay.
And you have to be an employee to have a wage garnishment. So a self-employed person can't have their wages garnished because technically they don't have wages. So people think all kinds of nasty things about it, and it's not like a pickle comes with your paycheck and it's been garnished. So there's limitations on these garnishments. And to begin with, people are in fear because the debt collectors intimidate you and say, well, we're going to garnish your wages. Some guy out of New York in his little cubicles calling and threatening this. Well, this guy out of New York can't do anything. A wage garnishment is usually going to be initiated by an attorney. And first of all, there's different steps that must occur before there can be a wage garnishment. It's a tool that a person has to collect a judgment. So there first has to be a judgment obtained. So if it's a medical bill or a bank loan or a credit card company, they have to sue you. So the suits can either be in small claims court, which are going to be lawsuits that are $5,000 and under, or district court, which are all lawsuits for an amount over $5,000. So you got to be sued. And at least in theory, under the rules, you have to know that you are being sued. The person suing you is supposed to have you served with the court papers. Somebody is supposed to come to your house, knock on the door, and hand you the papers in person, or any other adult that happens to be residing there who answers the door. I wish I could say the person always knows, but I know that with some of the different process serving that goes on, it's done sloppy. They're supposed to file affidavits with the court stating who they served and when. But I've had clients where they were supposedly served at addresses that they don't even live at. They'll take shortcuts. They'll go to a parent's house and serve them when the person hasn't lived there for 5 years, and then say that they made service. It's not lawful service, and so many of these go by default because nobody actually does anything in response to it because, hey, I owe it. And so, I wish there was a better way for that stuff to be policed, but there isn't. So, but most of the cases, I'd like to think a person is going to know. Now, if someone lives with their boyfriend or girlfriend, unfortunately, sometimes they get these papers because they're an adult in the household, and they never tell the other person. They just throw them in the drawer, and they're probably not their significant other for too much longer with that type of communication. I'd kind of like to know if I was being sued.
That would be a good idea, yeah.
So what you're trying to say is this isn't just going to be a surprise. Like just because you haven't been able to pay a bill, you're not all of a sudden going to see something taken out of your paycheck.
Yeah, a company can't just call your boss and say, hey, you need to take some money out of his check because he owes me some money.
Exactly, and it's got to be something that's generated by a sheriff's department from one of the counties in Iowa. Another bad thing that happens with wage garnishments is people move from other states, and judgments have been obtained in other states, let's just say Michigan, because I've seen a few of these, and then the person's in Iowa for 2 or 3 years, and these collection lawyers in Michigan, I don't know why, but I've seen so many of them, they'll all of a sudden find out from a credit report where a person's working, and they'll send something from Michigan to an Iowa employer trying to garnish. Well, that's illegal. We call them on this and tell them, you better stop or we're suing you, and they immediately stop the garnishment, because these are Iowa companies that have no connection with Michigan, and they're not allowed to do this because there's procedures to get a judgment registered from an outside state into Iowa, and it involves notice. And so they can't just do this. Now, what can happen if you work at Wells Fargo, and there's Wells Fargo banks all over the country, as long as they serve a Wells Fargo bank in the originating state, if it was Michigan and the person works at Wells Fargo in Des Moines, well, they can get garnished from an outside judgment because of a national employer.
Okay.
Now, the garnishments, when they run for 4 months, and there's a percentage of your take-home pay that they're going to receive. It's 25% of your take-home pay.
Oh my goodness.
And that garnishment can run for 4 months or until they reach the maximum amount that they can garnish during the calendar year.
And is that a set amount, or is that just based on how much you owe them?
It's on a sliding scale. So, I mean, if you have a small judgment against you for $800, it's probably going to get collected during that 4 months. But some people have a $10,000 or $15,000 judgment, and so they can get, pecking at you for quite a while. So it's a sliding scale based upon what your reported gross income is going to be, and that determines how much they can take. The employer has to answer questions to the sheriff saying, what is this person expected to earn during the year? So starting at the bottom end, if you make under $12,000 and up to that amount, they can take $250. Well, that's not too much damage, although the person that's getting it making $12,000 probably thinks it is.
Right.
Then if you make $12,000 to $16,000, it's $400 that they can take in a calendar year. From $16,000 to $24,000, they can take $800, and then it gets kind of nasty. From $24,000 to $35,000, they can take $1,500, and that sort of hurts.
Wow.
And then from $35,000 to $50,000, I know you think, well, they're not doing too bad, making $50,000. Well, yeah, but they can garnish $2,000 over a 4-month period. And then if you make over $50,000, well, there really isn't a limit. It's 10% of your gross. Wow. So the more you make, it's 10% of the gross.
But it's still that 4-month limit, though. They have to gather it in that 4-month time period.
If it expires, then they can run it again to collect the rest. And once they get it, if they get all the money, if they start in January and they get all the money and a couple of garnishments by July, they're done for 2017. And so they can't resume it again until January of the next year.
Okay. And
they can start all over again. Now, to combat these garnishments, the best way is, most people that have one, it's not their only debt. Bankruptcy is a real good way to get rid of these garnishments. The ones that are going on, the ones that are judgments just sitting there waiting to go on,
right,
and all the other debts that you've got that haven't gotten that far yet. So bankruptcy stops all that. And another thing that a person can do, let's just say it is the only one, you have an opportunity to ask the court to stop the garnishment. They use a legal term called quash. And if you file a request, and I think they've got forms even down at the courthouse that a person can just go down and fill out and file it. The court will set a hearing. You can go down, make your case as to why it shouldn't happen. The creditor's got a legal right to do this, but sometimes a single parent will go down there and look, I can't buy groceries for the kids or pay my rent. And I think there are occasions where the judge will just lift it all together. But I think much of the time when it gets to that point, I think that the judge tries to convince the creditor in their own way to take a payment plan instead of this garnishment. And I think that if the judge is saying they should take a payment plan, I think usually creditor decides we better allow them to do a payment plan.
Right.
Because the judge could tell them no garnishment at all.
Yeah.
And so I've had clients that were able to make a fairly reasonable payment plan, much better than taking big chunks out of their paycheck for 4 months because you can't pay the rent. So sometimes it'll be $50 a month or $100 a month. And it's a lot more reasonable. And if that's the only judgment, that might be the way to go, and at least get down there, see the judge, and see if the judge can help you out and have some pity.
So wage garnishment, we understand what it is now, so there's some other options.
As I say, most importantly, there's options for you out there, so we want to make sure people know how to get in touch with you to make sure they know their options.
You can call me at 255-1855, and we'll tell you what you should do. And you can find me on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com.
There you go.
Perfect.
Hopefully that helps out immensely. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, it is 8:51 right now. Stick around. We will be right back. And when we come back, a truck driver loses his marbles. Seriously, he does. We'll show you next.